Hello, everybody. How are you today? We are back for another Bible story. We are going to get out of the book of Joshua. We just finished up with the story of the Jericho walls and what happened there. But we're going to skip a couple of books into the Bible. For those of you who are joining one of these videos for the very first time, let me tell you what's going on. So we've been going through various Bible stories. This is for people who have either never read the Bible, they don't know all of the stories, maybe they've heard bits and pieces of the stories, but not all of the stories, and certainly not in their entirety. Maybe you've just forgotten what some of these stories were about. Or maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about them. Whatever the case may be, we have been going through the stories, and today I thought what we would do is start reading some stories out of the book of 1 Samuel. And to kind of give you a little bit of a background, we left off where Joshua had moved the Israelites into the land of Israel, the land that God had promised them. And there were all sorts of things that happened there. They went through a lot of different battles. People tried to capture them. They did bad things. And whenever they did bad things, things that God did not want them to do, things didn't go well for them. So one of the things that happened to them as we get into the book of Samuel, Samuel is a prophet. If you remember, several months ago, we actually read about Samuel. We found out that when Samuel was born, his mother took him to live with the priest Eli. And he grew up in the house of the Lord, and he became a prophet. He actually predicted the death of Eli's sons, and then Eli has died and left Samuel in charge, and Samuel is God's priest and prophet. And he was also a judge. If you remember, when we were reading about Moses, God had established this, what we'll call legal system. He appointed judges. He appointed people to be judges over the people of Israel to execute his laws, God's laws. Well, as we get into the book of Samuel, we're going to find out that the people wanted more than just a judge. But what has happened right now, we are going to start with chapter 5. Eli has died, Samuel is in charge, and we're going to start with chapter 5 of 1 Samuel right now. What has happened is the Ark of the Covenant, remember that's where God's Spirit was. He was in the Ark of this Covenant along with the Ten Commandments, has been captured by the Philistine army. The Philistines have captured it. So let's start with chapter 5. After the Philistines had captured the Ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod, brought it into the temple of Dagon, and placed it next to his statue. When the people of Ashdod got up early the next morning, there was Dagon, fallen with his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and returned him to his place. But when they got up early the next morning, there was Dagon, fallen with his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. This time, Dagon's head and both of his hands were broken off and laying on the threshold. Only Dagon's torso remained. That is why still today the priests of Dagon and everyone who enters the temple of Dagon in Ashdod do not step on Dagon's threshold. The Lord's hand was heavy on the people of Ashdod. He terrified the people of Ashdod and its territory and afflicted them with tumors. When the people of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, "The ark of Israel's God must not stay here with us, because his hand is truly against us and our God Dagon." So they called all the Philistine rulers together and asked, "What should we do with the ark of Israel's God?" "The ark of Israel's God should be moved to Gath," they replied. So they moved the ark of Israel's God. After they had moved it, the Lord's hand was against the city of Gath, causing a great panic. He afflicted the people of the city from the youngest to the oldest with an outbreak of tumors. The people of Gath then sent the ark of God to Ekron. But when they got it there, the Ekronites cried out, "They've moved the ark of Israel's God to us to kill us and our people." The Ekronites called all the Philistine rulers together. They said, "Send the ark of Israel's God away. Let it return to its place so it won't kill us and our people." For the fear of death pervaded the city. God's hand was oppressing them. Those who did not die were afflicted with tumors, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. We're also going to read chapter 6. When the ark of the Lord had been in Philistine territory for 7 months, the Philistines summoned the priests and the diviners and pleaded, "What should we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us, how can we send it back to its place?" They replied, "If you send the ark of Israel's God away, do not send it without an offering. Send back a guilt offering to him, and you will be healed. Then the reason his hand hasn't been removed from you will be revealed." They asked, "What guilt offering should we send back to him?" They answered, 5 gold tumors and 5 gold mice, corresponding to the number of Philistine rulers, since there was one plague for both you and your rulers. Make images of your tumors and of your mice that are destroying the land. Give glory to Israel's God, and perhaps he will stop oppressing you, your gods, and your land. Why harden your heart as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened theirs when he afflicted them? Excuse me. Didn't they send Israel away and Israel left? Now then, prepare 1 new cart and 2 milk cows that have never been yoked. Hitch the cows to the cart, but take their calves away and pen them up. Take the ark of the Lord, place it on the cart, and put the gold objects that you're sending him as a guilt offering in a box beside the ark. Send it off and let it go its way. Then watch. If it goes up the road to its homeland towards Beth Shemesh, I got tongue-tied. It is the Lord who has made this terrible trouble for us. However, if it doesn't, we will know that it was not his hand that punished us. It was just something that happened to us by chance." The men did this. They took 2 milk cows, hitched them to the cart, and confined their calves in the pen. Then they put the ark of the Lord on the cart, along with the box containing the gold mice and images of their tumors. The cows went straight up the road to Beth Shemesh. They stayed on that one highway, lowing as they went. They never strayed to the right nor to the left. The Philistine rulers were walking behind them to the territory of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting wheat in the valley, and when they looked up and saw the ark, they were overjoyed to see it. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there near a large rock. The people of the city chopped up the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites removed the ark of the Lord along with the box containing the gold objects and placed them on the large rock. That day the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices to the Lord. When the 5 Philistine rulers observed this, they returned to Ekron that same day. As a guilt offering to the Lord, the Philistines had sent back 1 gold tumor for each city: Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. The number of gold mice also corresponded to the number of Philistine cities of the 5 rulers, the fortified cities, and the outlying villages. The large rock on which the ark of the Lord was placed is still in the field of Joshua at Beth Shemesh today. God struck down the people of Beth Shemesh because they looked inside the ark of the Lord. He struck down 70 persons. The people mourned because the Lord struck them with a great slaughter. The people of Beth Shemesh asked, "Who is able to stand in the presence of the Lord, his holy God? To whom should this ark go from here?" They sent messengers to the residents of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and get it." So the people of Kiriath Jearim came for the ark of the Lord and took it to Abinadab's house on the hill. They consecrated his son Eleazar to take care of it. Okay, So we read chapters 5 and 6 and actually the first part of chapter 7, okay? When we look at these stories, remember I keep telling you there are 3 ways that we look at things. What does it say? We have to have reading comprehension. We have to know the words on the page. What was it saying to the people of the time? What was going on in context of what happened? And what, if anything, is it saying to us today? So let's back up and look at chapter 5. What did it say in chapter 5? It says that after the Philistines had captured the ark, they put it into the same temple as their god Dagon. Okay, that was one of their pagan gods. This is not a real god. It was just a statue. It was not a real god. There is only one real God. And so they took this Ark of the Covenant that contained the spirit of the one true God, and they put it in the temple with the statue. When they got up the next morning and they looked in the temple, they see that Dagon, he was tipped over and he's face down, he's bowed down in front of the Ark of the Lord, the Ark of the Covenant. So they thought, well, that's strange. And they picked it up, put it back in its place, went to check on it the next day, and lo and behold, he was face down again before the Ark of the Lord. Only this time his head had been chopped off and his hands were chopped off. The whole statue was just a rumble. There was nothing left but the torso. So the people are like, whoa, we got to get rid of this thing. So they try to get rid of it. They take it somewhere else. The next place they take it, they get plagued. They get tumors. And they're like, we can't keep the Ark of the Covenant of God. God's in there. That God is way too powerful for us. He's going to kill us. We need to get rid of it. So they take it to the Ekron, and the Ekronites are freaking out. They're like, no, don't do this. We can't. You know, it's going to kill us too. So they devise this plan. In chapter 6, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the ark, we're going to put it on a cart, and we're going to offer a guilt sacrifice to their God. We're sorry. This is an apology that they're making because they've recognized that there's only one powerful God, a God above all gods. Our God, the God of Israel, is the God above all gods. He's the God who created everything. Remember, we learned that in Genesis. He created everything. What he says goes, okay? So they put this ark on a cart and along with some cows, you know, and they say, okay, here's the deal. If it starts heading off to, what was the name of that place that I kept getting tongue-tied about? If it starts heading off to this land, let's see, Beth Shemesh. It went to Beth Shemesh. If it starts heading off to Beth Shemesh, then we got rid of it. It's going where God wants it to go. If it doesn't, then it's not, God's not really punishing us, and we need to figure out what else is going on here. So they put it on the cart, and sure enough, the cows go. They follow it to see where it's going, and it heads off to Beth Shemesh. So it gets there, and inside, God had told people they were not allowed to look inside the Ark of the Covenant. Nobody could even touch the Ark of the Covenant without being killed. So they're a little freaked out. I suppose what happened is they were probably checking that ark to see if God was still in there because it had been in Philistine territory for 7 months. So my thought, and I don't know if I'm correct or not, is they probably looked in there. 70 people got killed, and they're like, what are we going to do? Who can withstand the presence of the Lord? So they don't know what to do, and they send messengers to Kiriath Jearim, and they say, you got to come get this ark because we can't have it here. Evidently, that's not where God wanted it. So the people of Kiriath Jearim came and got the ark, and that's where we've left off, okay? So what do we take away from all of this? One of the things that we know is that God will not be mocked, right? Remember, we've been finding out when God says something, he means it. God is all powerful. He was more powerful than the God of the Philistines. They had different gods that they worshipped, different pagan gods, one of those being Dagon. And so much so that even a false god, even a statue, bowed down before the Ark of the Covenant, because that's where God was in. His spirit was in this ark. And so God's saying, you people have stolen me from my rightful owners, the Israelites, and you will give me back. And he makes a way for that to happen. He puts them to shame so much. They remembered the stories they had heard about what happened to Pharaoh in Egypt. And they're like, don't you guys remember all of those plagues that happened to the Egyptians and to Pharaoh? They let the Israelites go because death came to them. We gotta get rid of this thing. We gotta get rid of this. So they did. We learn from this that God is God. He is the one who is in control. He has a plan, and he will not be mocked. What he says goes. We find out that when people try to do things contrary to God's way, bad stuff happens. Even to good people. These people in Beth Shemesh were not necessarily bad people. They were probably just curious people and did not do what God said. He said, don't open the ark. Don't ever open the Ark of the Covenant unless you are a priest of the Lord and you have the right to do that. And these people were not. And so we find out that when people are disobedient, bad things happen. People in the whole land, people in the lands that this ark came into that didn't even know the ark was there, still suffered with plagues and had all kinds of, bad stuff happen to their country, their town, their cities, because the leaders were doing bad things with this ark. So we find out now that the ark is brought into Abinadab's house, and we will pick up with the rest of that. And then we're going to find out what happens over the course of the next couple of chapters. We're going to find out why the people no longer wanted to have judges. Why all of a sudden they decided they wanted to be like everybody else in the land and have a king. So we're going to find out that later. I hope you learned something. Maybe this was a story you never heard before. I hope you learned something today. And I look forward to us being together the next time. Thanks for watching.